Mark, good to see you again. I'll start with actually your reflections. Now you've had a bit of time to think about how you felt the last two games have gone and what your main takeaways are from those reflections.
Well, clearly we're disappointed with the results. There was parts of both games where we did okay, but then they were very similar games in terms of how they panned out. We started brightly in both games and then conceded 2 quick-fire goals and then found it very difficult to come back from that point. So, there's certain details in the game, certainly the last one with obviously the type of goals they scored and the set play, the third goal where we probably got just the organisation in terms of who goes out to the ball when they play that type of corner. So we've addressed things like that, just the fine details of it, so that if it ever happens again, we understand clearly what the process is. But games always throw up elements of things that you haven't approached because you haven't seen that before, and sometimes you just got to go back and review it and go over things and make sure that everybody's aware of what the responsibility is in terms of who's marking who and who's engaging the person on the ball. All those elements of our play we review time and time again. So we've just gone over those things really. We've struggled just in the last 2 games really to create enough chances, enough clear-cut chances. I think we had enough prior to the goals, certainly, against Orient. A number of opportunities where we didn't even hit the target, so we've got to improve in that regard. Things to think on, things we've discussed, things we've gone through on the training ground, and things that we can add to our play. But it's been 2 games of disappointment, obviously, is because there were teams in and around us, and you obviously, when you have the opportunity to damage the ambitions of teams around you, you want to take that. We haven't on these 2 occasions, but there's going to be other opportunities to do that in the future, so I'm not too disheartened.
I don't want to labour the point too much because I know we've spoken about it a lot lately, but that point about the first goal, is it something that you've addressed more so this week in reaction to how certainly the last 2 games have gone?
It's more so much the first goal, it's the second goal that gives you a mountain to climb, and clearly we've conceded 2 goals in the first half of games, and that makes it difficult, almost impossible. Sometimes when you're at the wayside, you've got to find a way, but they could cherry pick when they wanted to attack. They were organised, they're a good team. Both teams that we played in recent weeks are good sides. It's goals change games. The cliches are there because actually they ring true, because actually there's some substance to what the cliche is, because it actually does happen. So we've just got to make sure that when we're in the ascendancy, when the momentum's with us, we've got to capitalise on that. And when you're on top, that's when you've got to score. That's when you can obviously start to manage the game out and get to the end of the 90 minutes in a winning position. But at the moment, we're finding it difficult when we're going 2 goals behind. It's something that we need to be better at. Make sure we bounce back quickly.
Yeah, I raise that point because I suppose it comes down to response and how you respond to the first and second goal, as you say. Is it something that you can talk to the players about? And if so, how do you improve how they respond in those moments of adversity?
Well, it's about making sure that the reaction is instant. Sometimes it's just a technical thing. Sometimes it's unfortunate. Sometimes it's the opposition produce something that, even if you were ahead in the game, if they produce a moment which obviously teams have done. Certainly the second goal against ourselves is a great finish, a great goal. Sometimes you have to hold your hand up and say, yeah, there's not a lot we could have done about that. So that can happen, but it's about not dwelling on it. It's about saying, well, what's important now? What do we have to do to make sure we continue to have a foothold in the game and a platform to be able to get back into the game. I think in either game, there's no way that we've felt disappointed with ourselves. We're disappointed with the results, obviously, but not in terms of keeping going and always trying to get back on level terms. But I think there's ways you can do it. Sometimes if you're a bit strung out because you're overcommitting, because you're trying to get back into the games, then at times it can look like it's not organised or whatever, but that's just a case of people overcommitting. So I've reminded them about that. At times there will be opportunities to overcommit, and then that's when you flood the area and you get people, good numbers, and overload in key areas of the pitch, and you do that on occasions when it presents itself, but you can't just do it time again, because that's unrealistic, and teams will pick you up off going the other way, as we found. So we've got to get that balance right, but we've talked about it. We understand it as a group better now, and given similar circumstances, I would expect a vast improvement.
Your midfield pair, Alex Gillingham and Richie Smallwood, they've come in for a bit of criticism from fans of late, their performances. I just wondered, as the manager, how have you rated how they've been of late?
I think they've been very good this season. If you say the last two games it's been affected because they haven't played as well, I would suggest it's difficult when you're going up against good opposition. You want everybody to play well. It's not always possible. I'm not sure it's a general view that those two individuals that you've mentioned are the ones that haven't done as well as they can. I've got a lot of respect for their ability. I think you're looking at two games where maybe the team as a whole hasn't quite been where it needs to be, but Richie and Gilly have been great this season. Like I said, we're further than 2 games into the season, and there will be times when they can't have the influence that they want, clearly, but I have no qualms about their form or their ability. It's I see them every single day, the way they work, and no doubt there's going to be occasions where opposition will affect how effective they are. That can happen to anybody, but I have no worries about them too.
The dynamic that they bring to your side, what are you asking of them? What roles do they play in your midfield?
Well, they're in a defensive capacity and an attacking sense, and talk about balance. It's about understanding when to attack, when to defend. It's their organisational skills as well. We're not a team that's large in terms of the volume, in terms of people speaking on the pitch, but Gilly and Richie drive that because they're arguably two of the best at it, so they will always give us that. So they're two good players that have proved that over a long time in their career, and as I said, I have no qualms about them as individuals or members of the team. They're doing as well as they can, given the circumstances sometimes that present themselves. But no, they're excellent for us, and will continue to be.
Team news wise, how are you going into Sunday?
We're struggling with Tyreek. It might be an issue with him. I've just felt a little bit of an issue with his calf, and it's just whether or not we decide to go with Tyreek. Salias injuries are quite notorious, so we've got to be mindful of that, but it's quite positive, and it might be just the way the pitches are at the moment. They change sometimes. One day they're hard, next day they're soft, and that can obviously be an issue for you and compromise you. But we'll see how it goes. We've got another day. We'll see how he is tomorrow.
Romany?
Rom hasn't been out on the grass with us yet. He's feeling good. We'll see how he is tomorrow. We didn't train on the grass today, obviously, because it was very, very hard with the frost. We're on the 4G here, and wasn't really advisable for his first session back with the group to join in today. So he'll train at the stadium tomorrow, and we'll see how he is as well.
So he's in contention for Sunday?
Well, we'll see. Like I said, he hasn't been with the group yet, so it might be a little bit early, but he'll be training with us tomorrow, so we'll see.
Liam Rydalge, what's his situation at the moment?
It's frustrating for him and for everybody else. We just can't seem to get him up and running. He's doing a lot of, obviously, rehab work. We're trying to get to the bottom of what he's feeling at the moment. It's difficult because he gets very close, and then he's been getting setbacks, which obviously for a number of them it's meant he's had to start from scratch again. So it's a frustration for him, clearly, but he's near to getting back on the grass, which is progress on where he's been up to this point. So let's hope he has a clear run now and he gets over it.
Just focusing on your opponents this Sunday, Gillingham, that being if the game does go ahead, of course, there is a doubt given the cold weather that we've seen. Their form to start this season hasn't been as good as others, I think it's fair to say. I think 2 wins in the league and just 6 league goals. They're very favourable factors in your case, but I suppose you have to be wary of them as opponents still, particularly given how they won last night and it was a late win for them as well. Yeah,
and that result may well have boosted their confidence going into our game. So we'll have to wait and see whether or not it's on. It could fall victim to the weather. We'll have to wait and see. A number of games already have been called off, I think I'm right in saying. So we'll have to wait and see. Hopefully they'll give us a little bit of a heads up. Clearly we've got a lot of fans going down there, so ideally we get an early shout on that. But we'll see what happens overnight. Clearly, if they ever had frost, it looked quite firm, I have to say, last night watching the game. So we'll have to wait and see. But it will be dependent on them. It's obviously their home game, and I'm sure they're doing the best they can to get the game on. I would imagine it's in their interest, or they might think maybe, given they played Thursday, they might not want to play Sunday. We'll have to wait and see. But I think whether or not we play will be down to the weather rather than anything else.
And if the game does go ahead, then how wary do you have to be of them as opponents, despite the
their season hasn't been what they anticipated, clearly, but they'll back themselves. I'm sure they're a decent enough side. As I've said, all League Two teams have got good talent within the group, and that talent can hurt you. So we've got to be mindful of that. But we'll see how we go. It's important that we start to get on to winning terms again. We've frustrated ourselves and disappointed ourselves, so that can't continue for any length of time. So it's an opportunity for us, clearly.
And do you keep that feeling of opportunity further than just this game as well, given that you've got the Rochdale game, Harrogate's not too far away as well, you've got a good group of games on the horizon that could really turn this form back to where you want it to be?
Well, we'd like to think so, but that only happens if we do the right things and are able to capitalise on good periods during the game. I sense, because of the disappointment in recent weeks, we're at a point now where we're really determined to turn those results around. So I expect to see that on Sunday. Won't be easy for us because clearly they're in the situation themselves and they'll want to turn things around in terms of their own ambitions. So we've got to be mindful of that. But we're looking forward to it. It's an opportunity, obviously, to start to get back on track, and that's one we'll hope to take.
Final one from me, just January related. I asked you a couple of weeks ago or a few weeks ago what business you envisaged you might be doing. You said then it didn't expect too much to be happening in January. Has that standpoint at all changed, or is it still very much the same?
No, we did a lot of business in the summer, clearly, and for the most part, I've been happy with how it's panned out. There will be opportunities, I think it's fair to say, in the January window to maybe freshen the group up. We'll see. Some may well go out on loan just because they'll benefit from that. So we'll look and see what's available. Sometimes you think you're done, and then all of a sudden something presents itself and it makes total sense, and it needs to be done to help our situation. So we'll look at those things if and when they become available. But as I said a couple of weeks ago to you, it's not a case of unpicking what we've already done. We're doing okay, but there will always be opportunities to bring players that you think can make a difference. That always raises its head in January. It's not an easy window, but there will be a little bit of churn, I'm sure. A lot of clubs will look at their situation and how well or how poorly they feel they're doing and act accordingly. But it's about making sure you improve. Whenever you're going into a window, it's about improving what you've got at the end of it. So as long as you're better at the end of the window than you are at the beginning, then you've had a good window.
Thanks, Mark.
Okay.
So, Mark, obviously you mentioned about Tyree on the artificial surface. I mean, how much, when you get spells of weather like this, does it impact your plans for training? Because presumably you map the week out in advance.
Yeah, but we're fortunate here that we've got the option of an artificial surface. We trained on obviously grass pitches on Wednesday, and it was just clear enough to train on. It was just at that point where it was a little bit firm underfoot, but it took us so we were fine. Today, obviously, that wasn't an option for us, so we've got the benefit here that we've got the 4G that's available to us, so that's the real plus. I know lots of teams at this level haven't got that option, and when it's a frosty day and they can't use their one pitch they've got, then they're ringing around trying to find other facilities. It's not easy, so we're fortunate in that regard. So we make the best of it. It is what it is. A lot of clubs are in a similar situation, but you just make sure that even if you can't get out, which hasn't been the case yet, we're always able to do some work, even if, God forbid, we were going to use the 4G because I know it was waterlogged, or which it has done in the past. Mind you, doing a lot of work, so that shouldn't happen in the future. But if that's the case and that's out, then you can always do work in meetings and go through things tactically as well. So you never waste a training day. That wouldn't be the right thing to do.
Because obviously when you came in, I think the weather was pretty ropey.
Yeah.
Well, the first example of it.
Yeah, the first training session we did was on the 4G because the other pitches weren't available. So we're not in the depths of winter yet. So this is just the start of it. So I suppose we should get used to it.
I was going to say, is that something that you've had to get used to in the sense of training facilities obviously being at this level being very different?
It hasn't impacted on what I want to do on any given day. It's, as I said, you just make the best of what you got. You can always get something out of a training session as long as you've got an area that you can work, which for the most part we've always had. We'll probably train at the stadium actually tomorrow, just because at the moment it's covered. So we'll get an area there. So there's always something you can do.
In terms of obviously when you get these forecasts and lots of games falling foul this morning, and we don't know whether the Sunday's going to go ahead. Is that in the back of your mind when you're out there training? Are you trying to sort of, presumably you're focusing 100% on this game's going to be on, but is there a little part of you that sort of thinks, are we really going to push it here because the forecast looks horrendous?
No, you've just got to. The fixture's in the calendar, and you prepare for the fixture and the date in the calendar, and you just do everything that you would do leading into that game. If it falls by the wayside, so be it. You move on to the next one. So it's not like
you can't risk getting caught the other way, thinking it's going
to. No, absolutely, no. It's an uncontrollable. There's nothing we do about the weather. It's just got to concentrate on what you can control and organise and make sure that you're ready to go. So if this one falls by the wayside, we hope not, because we'd much prefer to play on a Sunday rather than having a long journey, possibly further in the season on a Tuesday night. So it's the best option for us.
You mentioned Liam Rydell earlier. An experienced player like that, he keeps sort of, ebbing and flowing, getting there and not quite getting there. I mean, how difficult's that been for Liam himself? Because he's
not easy. He's been so close on occasion, so it is a disappointment. But we're trying to get to the bottom of it. He's had an issue with his calf, obviously, and that was compounded initially with an issue with his groin as well. So we're thinking we're getting on top of it now. So hopefully from this point onwards he can start building his fitness back up to being part of what we're doing again. But as I said earlier, really frustrating for him at the moment.
Presumably the worst bit, as you say, is not being able to nail the problem 100%.
Yeah, and we think that obviously it's been a number of weeks now, and it's at that period to calm down. It's just that sense of not being quite right, and only the player knows that. So we're hopeful. Hopefully he's going to be back sooner rather than later.
So he's an experienced member of the squad, and one of the main.
Yeah, played really well for me last year. So he's been missed. The one compensation is how well Matty Foles has done this year. He's having a great season. So thankfully, Matty's form has allowed us to be comfortable with the situation without rides. But ideally, you want them both fit them all. Manny was out running today again, so he's progressing really well in comparison to rides. He hasn't had any touch with any setbacks yet, so that's why he's out there doing his stuff. Okay, guys.
Thanks for that.
No problem.